Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Nick Butter on, who is an endurance athlete. Hi, Nick.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on.
Our pleasure. Well, one of four today. You've already done 3 other podcasts, right?
I know.
Absolute glutton for punishment.
Not like that every day, but this week particularly has been a bit busy. I've been backlogged with trying to get on with other bits and pieces, but I really enjoy doing these chats actually. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Great stuff. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what you actually get up to, Nick?
Yes. So my name is Nick, and I am addicted to running. I suppose I can start with. I'm a runner, and I suppose I'm best known for being the first person to run a marathon in every country in the world. I have run 828 marathons and nearly 100 ultra marathons and just over 45,000 miles in my life. So I would say kind of class myself as a passionate jogger, but by no means am I actually particularly good at running, I suppose. Famously, my middle school headmaster in my PE report wrote, "Nick is not a natural runner." And by that point, I'd already done a lot of running. So I think it's true to say that I love running, and there's a lot of better runners out there. But I run because I love it. I think a lot of other people can run and try and make it a professional career by getting quick. But I'm more about running further, making things difficult for myself, and doing running challenges that nobody is doing. Doing lots of world firsts and trying to break some of those little boundaries, I suppose.
So it wasn't just 2 fingers up to your old headmaster saying, actually, I'll be a world record holder in multiple different running aspects.
It was that as well. If you're listening, Mr. Benson. No, I'm actually on good terms with him. He's seen me talk about my escapade a few times, and he's mentioned in my book as well as somebody that actually didn't get it wrong. He was probably very right. I'm probably put more effort in. That's kind of the story of my life. Put a lot of effort in and get reasonable results.
So you said by that point you'd actually already done quite a lot of running. So had you been running from a very young age, doing cross country and things like that?
Yeah, you're spot on. So cross country I always loved. Everybody else hated it because it's always in kind of stormy, wintry, cold season. But I was always absolutely crap at football. And
me too.
So
I was always rubbish at football, weren't you?
Were you the goalpost though? Was it that bad?
Yeah, we play rugby, but we were obviously had to play football at school at PE, and we were both goalkeepers, weren't we?
Yeah, and I definitely can't run either. So.
Well, that's the thing. I played a little bit of rugby at school, but I was always the winger because I could take the ball and run. But as soon as anyone got close to me, I would either drop it or run away. It pretty much sums me up, actually. No contact, please. No, rubbish at that. But no, I did do a lot of cross country. I guess sport was an outlet for potentially the strongest side of school for me, I guess, because running and sport meant that I could kind of bury myself into something that I was pretty good at and sometimes better than others at, where academically I was probably average at best, and I was strongly dyslexic at school. And I found stuff hard like that. And then it turns out that actually that doesn't really matter, and you can kind of find your own path and stuff. So running was definitely a really positive thing in my life, much more so than I realized at the time.
How did it sort of escalate to where you are now, though? Because obviously you must have a little bit of running at school, then probably decided to do a marathon. But going from doing a marathon to where you are now is a lot, probably.
Yeah, I suppose you just keep doing it. You just keep running. No, I think the answer is I suppose in a nutshell, my background was do a bit of running at school, kind of then run my decent distances when I was about 11 years old, and then usual upbringing, relatively privileged upbringing, really. And then I was a under-19s British skier, which was my passion. I absolutely loved skiing, and I was always out in the mountains, which is actually where I am now. And so that was, I set myself some kind of goals in life on Olympics. I wanted to be an Olympic skier, and obviously being British, that comes with some drawbacks. No snow or mountains being 2 quite big obstacles. And then obviously you've got all of the other aspects of, the funding to do that. And then you've got to be very on your game very early on. And I was pretty good, but but actually not quite good enough. And also I had the voice of my parents on my shoulders telling me to get a real job and to earn some money and to stop being a ski bum, basically, which they would never say that, but that was the strong impression I got. So I then kind of made a career in banking. Actually, I went into finance, which was great for earning money and great for learning the benefits of working hard, not just hard, but very hard. And then I used running as an outlet to offset some of that stress, anxiety, worry, pressure, and also in a sheer physical term, just being outdoors. And so running then quickly escalated, and I got better at it, entered a few races and did very well unexpectedly. And then that then compounded the passion for running, and then that then compounded it even further. And then I started to have opportunities to run for some brands and some sponsors that I then had to turn down because I was working. And so I think, as I'm sure you know, especially on your podcast, kind of careers often don't happen by, I would say more often than not, don't happen by I'm going to do this when I'm older. It's more of a let's mosey on through life and see where things take me. So this is where it took me.
I'd say probably 90% of the guests we've had on have said the exact same thing. They almost tried different things and did things they enjoyed, and it led them to the career they're in now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Something I'm focusing on actually over the next few years is, and hopefully indefinitely, is developing some school workshops and trying to talk about that kind of concept of, you don't ever get taught in your careers fairs at school. Yeah, you could go and be a YouTuber, or you could be I'm not a YouTuber obviously, but you don't get Olympic skier on that list. You also don't get endurance athlete on that list. You get vet, doctor, insurance broker. You get very standard boxes, and I hope to try and broaden that horizon, and the fact that if you just follow your passion, then the career will come. And if I could have any message to my younger self, it would be forget about money and just kind of remember what the important values are in the day to day, because I completely lost those in my early 20s.
Yeah, that's exactly what everyone else has said. I think we sometimes forget when we're young, right, I'm going to get a job that's going to pay me X amount of money, but in reality it doesn't really work like that. You have to give up a lot to go and sit in an office and earn X amount, which is good while you're young, but you soon get disillusioned with it.
Yeah, exactly. And not only disillusioned, but you can also, you're still pretty malleable in terms of your mind and your personality. And that sometimes friends I've seen, they kind of just go off on a path that, the career has made their life, as opposed to them, they're using their career to make their life, if that makes sense. It was, a chicken or egg thing. It was a really good message from Elon Musk recently I saw in an article, which was something along the lines of, I'm going to get it wrong now, but rather than setting yourself goals of things like fast cars and earning money and having houses, if you just set yourself one goal, which is always just to define who you want to be and who you want to be known for and what you want to achieve, if you can define that one thing, he's known for taking people to space and to going beyond. And so if you just set yourself on that, and everything else will kind of fall into place. And I wish I had that message when I was younger. And I also wish I knew how to do something with that advice, because I don't think I would have known it. But there's all sorts of things there, but certainly following your heart and trying to put the stresses of earning money to go down the normal career paths of mortgage, partner, dog, car, telly, retirement, death. I would try, the alternative path, in my opinion, is much more lively.
Definitely.
How was that for you, though? Because obviously being in finance, then at some point you had to probably make the decision of, I'm going to do this full time. How was that plunge for you?
Good question. I think, to answer that question honestly, I think I knew that I had to make that happen eventually. But I think a big part of me was, it was almost like going and dipping your toes into a freezing cold swimming pool. It was, once I'm in and it's going to be great. And I'm going to be enjoying it, and it's going to be much better and lighter, and all of the kind of the metaphors of being in water. But it's obviously you get cold and it's not very pleasant at first, and you then have doubts. But it took me, I'd say 3 or 4 years of wanting to, and then not, because of the benefits and also the ease. I think that's the most of the time where people don't change their career or follow their dreams enough, is because of, well, I've got it good, why should I upset the cart? And unfortunately, that is a big drawback to having, relative success, if you like. It's having blockers of the future. And at some point, all of the greats that have, whether it's a matter of how many zeros you've got in your bank or how many smiles you have, wrinkles, smile lines on your face, you've had to have that decision of, do I double down and go after what I want, or do I take the easy route? And I think society at the moment is pushing us very much into the realm of, well, try and think of your pension, try and think of, being a bit more sensible. And for loads of reasons, that's the right way to go. But a few big reasons, in my mind, the biggest reasons, it's about, what you want to be known for by the time you get to your deathbed. Do you want to just have earned a load of money and taken your kids to private school, or do you want to actually experience stuff and give them something that money can't buy? So there's that in the back of my mind as well.
100%. I've sort of a very similar feeling to you. I was in the city for like 5 years after school as an insurance broker, and I just always, although it was good, I just always felt that, oh God, what am I actually doing? Like, I'm just going to work. Like you said, I'm going to get a mortgage and then have kids, and I kind of want to do something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know perfectly what you mean.
Yeah.
What am I actually doing? I sometimes, frequently, I suppose, and increasingly so as the years went by, I just pictured the multiple screens that I was looking at just all being black. And I was looking at it going, because that's the equivalent of what I was actually doing. It doesn't really matter to the world. And now we've got these non-profits that we're doing really cool stuff that matters. And I feel like I can go to bed at night going, yeah, well, I might not be earning much money. I might not be, really pushing forward as much as I want to push forward. But every little step is so much greater than my just me. The sum of everybody around me is making what I want reality.
I think it's also important to say that, everyone has different values. So some people will actually go in and do a job because they like the monetary reward, and that's fine. But I think what we're also saying is, if you do pursue something you really have a passion for, 99% of the time, the money will follow. Maybe it will take years, but eventually you will get to a point where you've created value.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. It's the following your gut. It's like that. I can't think of the film now. I think it's Indiana Jones, where he has to step out onto a ledge that doesn't exist.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah,
leap of faith.
And it's like that. It's like, well, really, I'm going to follow my dreams and do what I love and have fun and be a skier and live in a van and then run around the world, and money's going to come from that, really? And it's like, it's bonkers, but it's right. In anything you're passionate about, I've got some great friends who are aspiring musicians and some artists, and they're all earning an okay wage. They're not breaking records with earning, but I tell you what, they are the most happy and fulfilled and emotionally aware people, because they're experiencing the world in a way in which, in my opinion, like 99% of the world doesn't. And there's I suppose I'm going off on a tangent, I guess, but the extra side of it, having seen so much of the world, is that we have the privilege to be able to make that choice. We are not born into a world where we only have the opportunity to walk or run many, many miles to fetch water, or like I experienced in Madagascar, kids making bricks and carrying 20 or 30 bricks on their back just to make a couple of pence that day, so they may be able to buy a small amount of food to support their huge family. Where in which, in many parts of the world, you most of your siblings don't make their 5th birthday, and you've got 2 million under 5-year-olds around the world that are starving to death because they can't have enough food. And we have the opportunity to pretty much just go, well, I think I'm going to go and be a poet, or I'm going to go and just. So much of the population of the globe do not have that chance, and so I feel like we have a responsibility. If given the opportunity, we take it. It's like the privilege of being able to vote. I feel like if you have that chance, then you have to fulfill that.
Definitely. I think as well with the rise of social media and the internet, and I think what maybe parents and grandparents probably don't understand is that it's so much easier for us to monetize things we do.
True, very, very true. There's a rise of, I guess, in a couple of 100 years' time, this revolution that we're in now is going to be called something. It's not the Industrial Revolution. Is it the rise of? Maybe there is a word. You correct me if I'm wrong, but there's going to be a word attached to this phase of the internet, I guess, that is opening up. I think about what I really need from a day to day, and actually, I don't really need a lot. But if I want to make some money and be able to achieve everything, I just need a laptop and internet connection. And that's pretty much what we're doing right now. And it's what the whole world can do if given the right opportunities. So you're right. We are in a world where people are making a lot of money on platforms online that I've never heard of. And I don't quite know how schools and career fairs and career advisors, who are naturally going to all be older than the students, can tap into that in a way which is up to date.
That's what we're trying to do, because it's just so outdated. The whole system is outdated.
Yeah. It's so outdated. There's a brilliant book. You've probably read it. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now. That's embarrassing. That's not a very good story if you can't remember the name. There's a book. I can't remember the name now. And it's about it's called Factfulness. If you haven't read it, it's a brilliant book, very detailed, put together by a father and daughter combo who travel the world educating politicians on the real state of the world. So stats, for example, I just said there's 2 million under 5-year-olds starving because they don't have enough food. What they do is they go around to politicians all over the world and give them the real figures. And it's actually a really uplifting book about how mankind is now in the best possible place it's been by a long, long way, exponential, than it's ever been. And we still moan about all the bad stuff that's happening. And I was reading it thinking, well, we still have a lot we can do. And it's a really good book to make you think about how lucky we are and what we've got, and also in a way in which it doesn't ignore the fact that still so much more needs to be done.
Yeah, certainly. With your running, I'm so fascinated about your world record of running a marathon in every country, and you did it in just under 2 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
How did you prepare, go into that, your mentality through that experience? It's a great achievement.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it because even though we've got the book and the documentaries coming out as well later this year, even though all those things will exist and people will see some of the behind the scenes, is that I'm most proud because there were so many obstacles to overcome just to get to the start line, let alone get to the finish line, and countless stresses and strains. And it was all just built out of a desire to do what I love: travel, meet people, take photos, run, and obviously raise some money for charity in the process. But to answer your question about preparation, the honest answer is my preparation running wise was appalling, because I got so bogged down with the logistics and have we got everything on plan? How many passports am I going to need? Where are the visas going to be going wrong? Do I need safety equipment? Is my sat phone working? Have we got a spare battery for it? What if a flight gets cancelled? And this is just multiplied up by 196 countries over 2 years, with people all over the world helping me. And I get to the start line and I realise, starting my watch on day one in Toronto, which was my first marathon in Canada, on the 6th of January 2018, and I realised that I hadn't actually run more than a half marathon for about 4 months, and I was about to do 200 of them.
Oh my God.
200 marathons. And I just thought, I'm a bit of a fool, really. What have I done? And it was minus 25 degrees. I was absolutely freezing. I was completely physically underprepared. But luckily, I had already had over 450 marathons under my belt. And so I knew that I could do the distance. I just hadn't done it recently. So it was a bit of a shock to myself, to be honest. I didn't even realise it until I actually started running.
Because that's one of the interesting things I'm interested about is how you dealt with the environments. Like you said, you started off in Canada at minus 25, and then there's pictures of you going through a desert, and that I don't know the time difference between that. But did the environments you were running in actually have much of an effect on you?
Yeah, they did. Not just the heat or the cold, but also the altitude. also for example, mentioned and just by chance, what was I talking about? Madagascar. Madagascar was one of the most polluted places I went to, not because of natural pollution, but because of the brick dust that they were all making in the village I was running around. And so little things like going from one country to another and experiencing beautiful, clean beaches to run along, to then being up in built-up cities in Hong Kong or in Japan, and then go from, I did one journey from South America where I ran in, where was it? I left Peru to go to North Korea and then came back to Ecuador within 5 days.
Wow.
And that was obviously Ecuador being rather high and also on the equator. And then North Korea, which was snowing. There was literally in the space of a few days. So how did I cope with that? I suppose the answer was badly, and I just got by with equator, literally the equator country, to then go to North Korea with the different altitudes, the different climates, the different dust in the air. There was so many areas like that, but I'd certainly felt that it was the best way to do it, go from extreme temperatures, because it meant that I kind of kept on my toes. It was also quite good for the journey and for the experience. But I did have a couple of months in the middle of Africa, I would say about 4 months, where I was just in hot climate, and all I wanted was it to rain. Just wanted it to rain. And as soon as I got to somewhere rainy, classic British, you just don't want it to rain anymore within minutes of it raining. And so the climates did catch me out, and thunderstorms and flooding, and we had plus 60 degrees or plus 59 to be precise in Q8.
Plus 59.
Yeah.
That is mad.
Hot.
Jesus.
And very, very, very horrible to run in. And good story about that, actually. I had a Harley Davidson biker gang wanted to support me. I don't know how they got hold of what I was doing. We were advertising it on social media. I think the embassy had something to do with it. They were really supportive there. It was being hosted by the ambassador and his wife.
Oh, wow.
And they said, yeah, we've got the Harley Davidson guys. They want to come out and support you. And what with it being 60 degrees, I wasn't expecting them to turn up in leathers, which they did. And then I think they said goodbye to me after about 3 miles, because their bikes all conked out, and I was obviously running at running pace, and their bikes are obviously not meant for running pace. So they were brilliant people, but it was quite funny to outrun a Harley.
Seriously hot.
Yeah.
So how would you actually describe your job, if you could? What do you actually do? What's an average day for you?
That's a good question. What is an average day? An average day, so my life goes in cycles. Cycle 1 is the planning stage of a trip. And it's not always as linear and as neat as this, but most of the time you spend a period of time planning. So for Running the World, that was a 2-year period of just head down in laptops, meetings, going into London, going overseas to meet with PR agencies, to meet with sponsors, to meet with friends, networks, embassy staff, just try and widen that network in order to make the project happen. And then you go into stage 2, which is obviously doing the trip itself, which is fairly self-explanatory. And then into stage 3, which is the return on the investment that you've paid to do the trip. And also the return on the investment for the sponsors. And so that's everything from book, documentary, speaking, which are all things I happen to enjoy doing, which is, again, the whole point of doing a career that you enjoy. And then you then repeat the process. And sometimes there's overlaps with other projects. For example, something we're planning in 2023, which is relatively under wraps. We were planning even halfway through Running the World. We had people planning that journey. And that was back in 2019. So that was 4 years before we were due to start. And that's because there's so much that has to be done. So I suppose the answer to your question is that we do things in cycles on a day-to-day basis. Today, obviously, I've done a few podcasts. I spend I think about 60% of my time working on the admin of projects, which I happen to enjoy as well. So that's everything from funding to working with brands to making sure, I've got a trip coming up in New Zealand where I'm running north to south of New Zealand. And so that's speaking with somebody, for example, brilliant person we're working with called Sarah, who's going to be coming along to do photography with us. So I'll speak to her and say, are we set up for the right terrain? Do we know where we're going? Kind of filling her in on all the information, understanding the filming days. And then I'll have a chat with my manager, and I'll talk to her about what else we've got going on, what other projects we've got going on. And I guess I love that bit of it. But then naturally, there's the elephant in the room is, when am I running? And it's pretty much any free time I have. This month is a bit of an exception because I've just come back from running in Italy where I did 100 marathons in 100 days. So I've been putting my feet up for a bit. But most of the time I get out and do some decent mileage every day in order to keep my legs ticking over, and to try not to fall back into that trap of what happened in Toronto, realizing I hadn't done much running. So yeah, that's roughly the gist. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How many people are actually involved in setting up something like this? And also, what is something that you probably never expected to have to organize for all this to happen? Is there anything weird that you have to organize and you never expected?
That's a good question. Yeah, I suppose it's just little things like setting up like admin passwords on domain names and stuff for websites, that because it's kind of my brand and me that's at the face of it. There's so many people in the background that need access to stuff and be able to manage things for me. And I wasn't expecting to have to write a content schedule for social media, because that's not what I came in. Before running, I just looked at social media and thought, well, that's a waste of time. And now it's my career. Without it, we wouldn't be able to have the brands on board in order to be able to pay for what we're doing. We wouldn't be able to share the stories, and there'd be absolutely no point in me running around the world because we wouldn't have been able to share the story to raise the money for the charity. So it's just all interconnected. Just thinking of other weird things that I've been doing, but most of it is fairly normal, I suppose. Not that weird. It's just not what I envisaged when I thought, I'm going to be a runner. You think you're going to go to a track and train, and that's not me at all. That's not what I do. I never run on a track, and I just go out and run my miles and come back and do some writing for a book and juggling of that. Speaking to publishers, having to go over soon to Australia to speak with the lawyers for the documentary, and all of that, which is really exciting and sounds really cool, but it is labor intensive as well. Yeah.
So how does well, I guess, what personality traits do you see in yourself and other maybe people that do a similar thing to you that think really help to thrive?
Well, I think the honest answer to that is being a bit selfish and being a bit stubborn. I can't get away from the fact that I think most people in the endurance world, and maybe I'm speaking only for myself, but I doubt it, you do have to have an element of selfishness about what you're doing when you're in the moment. When when I ran through Italy, north to south of Italy, which was just before Christmas, running 100 marathons in 100 days, that was entirely selfish. My girlfriend and I and our puppy living in a van, wanting to see beautiful bits of Italy while we could, actually turned into me running in a lot of rain, having to dry my clothes out, having to have food ordered for me. It was a very selfish endeavor, really, looking back, and I didn't fully realize that. And you do have to have that at the forefront, otherwise you're not going to get there, which I think some people see selfishness as a really negative trait, and I think in the wrong realm, wrong kind of sector, that's the case. But without it, you're not going to be able to get your head down and crack on when the going gets tough. So there's an element of that, but I'm certainly having to learn to be a little bit more flexible. And I wrote a few things recently about trying to find some balance in that. Obviously, the usual terminology about resilience and coming up against those barriers and pushing forwards. But I think a lot of my career, because it's not just, I'm not a track runner. I'm not like an Olympic track runner. It's not the same realm. It's because we're doing adventures. I'm having to split my time between planning and trying to lead people, I suppose. Because and I'm not particularly very good at that, and I have to have people involved to keep me on the case with stuff. And I have a brilliant system with my manager where she gives me work to make sure that I'm on the case, because that's not what I signed up for. I know I don't want to just manage a big group of people. I want to enjoy my life of running.
So for anyone listening to this and thinking, I'm going to start pursuing something similar to this, a big part of this, whether it be adventure or running or extreme sports, is the sponsorship and the working with brands. Can you tell us a little about how that actually works?
Yeah, it's in an ideal world, I think most people have an opinion of sponsorship as you write a letter to somebody, you have a meeting, they give you £100,000 and you go off and have a great exactly. It doesn't happen like that. You send tens of thousands of emails and have tens of thousands of conversations. And I'm exaggerating, but not by much. And if you're very lucky, they'll come back and say no. Otherwise, they'll just ignore you. And if you're very, very lucky, they'll come back and say maybe. And if you're very, very, very lucky, then they might give you some socks. It's difficult, and it is challenging. When we were trying to find funding for the Running the World trip, I firmly believed that we would have a hotel chain on board, that we'd have an airline on board, that we would have some big body that we'd never been done, global, brilliant exposure. I didn't have a name for myself really then, and so why would they? But also, why not? COVID wasn't a thing, and actually, we ended up having some brilliant conversations with some brilliant people and some brilliant companies. But the answer was not even 9 times out of 10, 9.9 out of 10 was no, because there's all sorts of reasons that I hadn't thought of. For example, I was speaking to the people at Virgin and Richard Branson about potentially sponsoring, and they were really keen and excited, and Richard's son Sam, we spoke to conversations about getting involved in his film company, and there was just lots of excitement. And then there was a realization that actually what I was doing might be dangerous, and would they want to fund me getting my head chopped off in a war zone? And that was a real conversation. That was there's other areas to consider. So, and I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't even looked at it from the other side. So I'm learning very much. And I think everybody in this industry is always kind of adapting to it, but there's always reasons why not to do stuff as well. And so fortunately now I've got a little bit of a name for myself. I've done something, we've got a book, and some brands are being able to help, but there is still the worry there of being able to pay me to promote them in a way that's going to be worth it for them. That's going to actually make financial sense, and I completely understand that. And also, the money that I get paid is so tiny that it barely covers the people that are working for me. And if I don't have those people working for me, then we can't expand on that.
So it's kind of odd, because obviously you've now got a name for yourself, which I'd assume these companies are slightly more inclined to come towards you, but you've also probably done something that it can't be topped almost. So it's kind of I don't know, do you feel like they've sort of missed the boat?
I suppose the answer is yes and a no to that. I think I'm falling down on the no. I don't think they've missed the boat, because what we're doing next, which I can't really reveal all the details, but it's going to be substantially bigger than what I've just done.
Wow.
And it's going to be probably the biggest thing that I will ever do in endurance, because you can't physically go anymore.
Oh my God, tell us, what is it?
No, I can't tell. I'm sworn, talking about sponsors, I'm sworn to secrecy by sponsors. But it is, I'm incredibly scared of it, which I think is a good sign that it's going to be, and a lot of people don't think it's possible, including me. But it's something that I wouldn't be planning it if I didn't think there was a slight chance. And so there's always ways to push the boundaries and do things differently. And also, sponsors don't necessarily come on board because they want to be a part of. Some sponsors want to come on board to be a part of pushing their own name, and it's a great opportunity. Some people come on board because they just want to be a part of the journey and have their name alongside the mission. And and some brands come on board because they like me. And if we can find somebody that kind of ticks all those boxes, then maybe we'll get somewhere. But honestly, talking about sponsorship and funding, it's something that we spend so much of our time focusing on, and is incredibly difficult to do well, because I don't want people to give me money if we're then not giving them their returns, because that's not very nice, but also B, not very sensible in the long term. It's just not sustainable. And so we're learning to adapt our model, but it's a process that works. It's this career, I've got really great mentors in the industry that have kind of tried and tested this approach 10 years before I was born, and they know the system and how it works. And it does frustrate me a little bit that I think the outside world, and again being completely honest, just look at it as he's just sponsored a load of money to go and do that. And I can assure you that that's not the case. We spent nearly £1 million of our own money doing Running the World.
Wow.
And that's money that is going to come back, trickle in over the rest of my life. It's not just we'll sell a couple of books and the books are selling for 15 quid. I only have to sell this many books to get that money back. No, we only get a quid for a book, and so it's not as straightforward and as obvious as I think a lot of people see it. But I'm okay with that, because it's ultimately I'm still following my dreams. I'm doing what I love, so I don't really care how hard it is. I also am quite addicted in the best possible way of working hard, and if I just had the money on a plate, I don't think it would feel the same. And
I guess for you, what's been the biggest positive of taking the leap and doing this?
The obvious one that springs to mind is freedom, but I don't think freedom is the best. I think the best is the people I have around me, my network and my contacts. And I look at people, they go, "Oh, have you got many friends in the running world? Have you got many?" And everybody I can think of is connected with what I'm doing in some way, whether they run a mile or not. It's people from the presidents I've met and run with around the world. It's the brilliant Paralympians I ran with and experienced fantastically magical and moving conversations with. And everything I do just ends up with feeling incredibly grateful that I've met these people and had a conversation with them, and you guys included, because it's all in the same realm of I'd much rather be talking to you about this stuff than I would be filling in some spreadsheet at 2:00 in the morning, stressed out my mind about something,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you have to kind of catch yourself and go, oh yeah, well, I'm sitting behind my computer for 5 hours today and I'm chatting to a few people on phone calls, and you go, well, yeah, that's good. The alternative is that I'm not doing that, and I'm not sat in the Alps, and I can go and do whatever I need to do and train in this beautiful place. I could be locked down in the UK in a normal job, furloughed, and if I hadn't made that jump. And so I think the amount of people I've got around me that what's the word? I don't just admire them. I'm so grateful that they have been able to support. I've got friends, classic example, I met a brilliant guy called Nick in Guatemala, British guy running a marathon series out there called Impact Marathon Series. Really brilliant bloke, came around with me. We ran around a beautiful erupting volcano in Antigua, stayed in contact. He ran with me a few more times in all the different continents on my journey. I then had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and he's coming on board as a trustee for one of my non-profits, and we're able to work together again. Multiply that up with all of the countries in the world, in all the different realms of sponsorship, there's so many different areas of the business, and then you just realize there's these brilliant people connected to it, just willing to do the right thing. So it's just made my view of humanity it's
humbling almost when you hear stories like that.
Very, yeah.
On the flip side of that, though, what would be some of the less favourable aspects you've about this industry?
I'm sorry, I've just put a massive piece of pastry in my mouth. I think you get with endurance running, you sometimes get, because there's been some people in the past that have cheated and tried to take on records, and it's been a little bit too much. I'm not mentioning any names because I feel quite sorry for them, actually, that they've kind of ruined their careers by cheating. And everything I do, especially running the world as an example, and anything I'm doing in the future, you have to make sure you are doing so perfectly. And I wear 2 watches when I go out and and do all this stuff, not just because Guinness World Records need that accreditation, but just so I can prove that I've definitely done it. And I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to, I'm not doing it to put it on Strava and go, I did that. I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and I don't want to have to keep proving to everybody that I actually did it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit of a downside, but then I suppose that keeps us everybody honest, and we know that maybe the whole industry is experiencing the same thing. So it's a very minor point, I think. 99% of the people in the running community are absolutely amazing and incredibly supportive. And again, you're around people that are doing the same stuff as you, and I never get the feeling of having competition with them. I'll call people, even this last week, I've called people and I've said, I'm thinking about doing this trip. Do you think it's all right? And on one hand, you could think, I don't want them to steal my idea. And on the other hand, you think, no, they're just great people and they want to help. And 9 times out of 10, that's the experience I've had. So I know your question was about the downsides, but I honestly don't see the downsides really. And I think that's a good sign, a good sign of why I'm doing it. I don't mind working a bit behind the scenes. I don't mind not really having much money. I don't really mind any of it. It's just an absolute dream.
You're just doing what you love, which is perfect.
I'm doing what I love. I know I can't ask for more than that.
We usually ask people how they sort of progress in their careers, but it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because I guess you can answer it. How do you progress what you're doing? Obviously, you've done the challenge around the world, and you just talked about doing this bigger challenge you've got to set up. So is that how you do it? You go from bigger challenge to bigger challenge, or how does it work?
No, I don't. I'd see it the same as a hierarchy in a business, I suppose. You can either keep going up and up and do bigger and better, and some aspects like this big thing we've got going on, I definitely want to tick that box for me, because it's something I wanted to do. Wish I could talk about it, because it's quite annoying not being able to talk about it. And then I think that you can go sideways. So, for example, this year I'm doing New Zealand. I'm going north to south of New Zealand. I'm running north to south of Malawi. I'm circumnavigating Iceland, and I'm circumnavigating Bali.
Only a few things then on the list.
Exactly, only a few things. Just a little jog in a couple of countries. And these are all things that I've had on my list for a long time, and they're beautiful countries, and they're all going to be done slightly differently. Some of them like solo things with buggies. Some of them are going to be with like Malawi, with really great communities and lots of outreach and community work and non-profit stuff. And they're all kind of different realms. And so I'm now looking at my career very much as not my career, and it's very difficult to talk about it like that because it's just my life, and I'm going about it in a way in which I'm ticking off the boxes that I want to do. It's like having you sit down as a kid, and I wrote this in the book actually, sit down as a kid writing all the things that you would really love to do in your life, and then I'm just going off and ticking them all. So it's quite nice. And I'm not trying to go and be bigger and better or to try and progress my career. I'm just going, I think I want to go and run north to south of New Zealand. I'm going to do that. and then fortunately we can get some brilliant people to come and take photos. We can put it on social media. Maybe we'll get enough money to to pay some of the photographers or to pay some of the team back home. And there's been some conversations in the past where some of the team are working with me, and I said, look, I feel like you're doing so much for me, and I can't afford to pay you anything. And they're like, that's fine. I'm just doing it because it's really cool. And I've got some great volunteers that have just come on board as well for some of our non-profits. And I feel terrible not being able to give them some cash. And actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they're just doing the same as me. They're going out and ticking the boxes that they want in their life. So,
What more could you ask for, I guess, when you grow up and you start thinking about, what you want to do in your life, and you loved running from a very young age, and now it is what you do. Amazing.
I know. It's a bit mad, really. I do kind of think of that sometimes. Of my brother's a really great example of somebody who works very hard now. He works as a nurse in A&E, and I feel I'm sitting here having done a little bit of a run, and I built an igloo the other day, and go for a little bit of a trot with the dog, and throw some snowballs at her, and come back and plan some of the trip and do a bit of training. And don't get me wrong, some of the training is hard, but not really as hard as being on the front line in the hospital, you know.
Definitely.
And so I look at it like that, and I really can't complain. Yeah, it's life. It's trying to make whatever I want out of it, I suppose, and doing so in a balanced way. And in the future, with talking about life and family and plans for the future and all that sort of stuff, which I think anybody does. I'm just fortunate that I'm not stuck to the conformities of a normal 9 to 5 anymore.
So the book, when's it out, and what's it all about?
So book Running the World was launched on the 11th of November. So it's been out for a few months and is rocketed up the Amazon bestseller list, which I'm very pleased with.
Awesome.
And it's done pretty well. And people are saying nice things about it. So I'm happy with it. It's a chunky book, a bloody chunky book. Obviously trying to consolidate 2 years of my life into a book. With countless stories. The editors at Penguin had a bit of a but no, good terms on that, and we're talking about doing some more books in the future. So yeah, anybody can get out and have a look at that. It's more about, a lot of people I think expected it to be a running book, but it's not really a running book, because it's more about the journey of traveling and experiencing the world through my eyes, and starting to develop some of my philosophies around how I am in it. I had a couple of mini crises of conscience during the trip of visiting some cancer rehabilitation centres and some children's hospitals, for example, in Sierra Leone.
Wow.
And I had some moments of, am I just being an idiot running around the world and having a great time, and I'm raising money for charity, but should I just stop and give all this money to this children's hospital? And actually looking back, the answer is no, because I wouldn't then be talking to you. I wouldn't then be able to share my story in schools and inspire other people. I wouldn't be able to carry on and do other stuff that helps other people. So I'm very much now just about trying to do what I love and do some good in the process. That's kind of my motto.
And you mentioned a documentary as well, right?
Yeah, documentary. That's all on standby at the moment, because we're having some extended, protracted conversations with some of the streamers, because they're hopefully going to be accepting or kind of wanting the business. Let's put it that way. So we are waiting for that, but it will come out. It's supposed to be actually coming out in February, and now it's obviously been pushed back, probably till towards the end of the year now.
Awesome.
And just before we wrap up, I think I know the answer to this, but would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Nah, it's rubbish. I love it, obviously. Yes, definitely. This industry is weird and wonderful and unstable, and I think there's beauty in that instability. I always was scared about having a non 9 to 5 and not having the salary and all that sort of stuff. And I just wish everybody could kind of have the courage to go and do that, because that's what I'm most proud of, really, just being able to leave a sensible job and have this life. So the answer is yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Nick. We both thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's been very inspiring.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to chat, and we'll catch up soon once I've done a few more little jogs.
Thank you. Where can people find you on Instagram and anywhere else to see what you're up to? And also, best of luck with your future adventures.
Thank you very much. Yeah, anybody can say hello to me on Instagram. It's Nick Butter Run. On my website, which is very easy, nickbutter.com. Email address is on there, so you can drop me an email if you're either training for a marathon or want to get into running, or want me to come and speak at a school or business, or if you want to, just basically come and do a few shared footsteps with me somewhere. Then more the merrier.